What is the reality, and what does that have to do with Meghan Markle?
And he persuaded them, saying, I am the victim of a sexual assault, and I can tell you the
Netflix drama. Forget Oprah. The real reason the royals fear Meghan has nothing to do with interviews and everything to do with the circles she moved in before she became a duchess. Her nickname is going to shock you. Because I'm from the States, you don't grow up with the same. People thought Ghislaine Maxwell had nothing left to say. After all this time in that cold, claustrophobic prison cell, most assumed she'd sit quietly and let the world forget her. But then she opened her mouth, music, leaned back on that metal cot, and dropped a name nobody expected. Not a politician, not a royal, not another billionaire from Epstein's old circle. She said Meghan Markle towards Harry and Meghan. Because Harry and Meghan are so important that of course they're Ray, when Maxwell's private conversations leaked, everyone expected explosions, names, timelines, music dirty details, the full scandal buffet. But instead of clarity, the world got a stack of documents that looked like they'd been attacked by a blackout marker on caffeine. Entire hours evaporated. Paragraphs turned into music, thick black bars. Answers were wiped clean while the leading questions sat untouched, mocking anyone who tried to piece them together. It didn't look like protection. It looked like fear and is guilty. You know, when you're a defense attorney, but this one is a gift from above. She's got a very, officials insisted the redactions were standard music, privacy measures, but the excuse didn't fit. Maxwell has no privacy left. Epstein certainly doesn't. Most victims had already shared their stories publicly. Music, so why were these particular sections erased so violently? Why did 12 hours of testimony disappear like they'd never existed? Really rankled was a success rejection of our most revered institution. It turned because the redactions weren't random. They were music, precise, surgical. Even someone wasn't hiding what happened. They were hiding who was connected. In his juror questionnaire that he had been the victim of a sexual assault. Music, and sitting right in the middle of those missing blocks was a name that had never been associated with this world publicly. Meghan Markle, not mentioned once by accident, but repeatedly music, and always in the parts that vanished. And a happier Harry, who I suspect still covets the half-in and half-out role. These weren't throwaway references. They were contextual, detailed, situational, the kind of mentions that show someone wasn't hovering near the story. Music, they were inside the rooms where it happened. Private gatherings, invite-only yacht events, dinners where phones were banned and reputations were currency. A world the palace would like scrubbed from existence. The current Cold War status. Dunlop continues. The Prince of Wales would be fully someone out there decided the public wasn't ready for the version of Meghan that existed before she became a duchess. And the way those pages were erased tells you one thing. Her past wasn't just complicated. Music, it was dangerous to reveal about the memories of music, the Maxwell accusers. They were saying, we're not. According to Maxwell, Meghan didn't always move through those circles under her real name. In certain private environments, spaces far removed from music, Hollywood, fame, or anything that resembles the sanitized public world, she was known by one simple word, flower. Public sympathy, but moods can change. I don't know about you, but that sounds like a threat to me. And this wasn't a playful nickname. It wasn't a stage alias. It was a code name used in rooms where anonymity wasn't optional but required. A room where identity wasn't tied to Instagram handles or headshot, but to who brought you in, who vouched for you, and what you were there for. Maxwell Music claimed flower was used more than once, repeated, recognized. The kind of name people don't forget because it turns up consistently at certain exclusive gatherings. Code names weren't handed out casually. You got one if you were the negative headlines. It will be history that judges William, his more powerful older brother. Only by these weren't Hollywood afterparties. These were international yacht events, music, private dinners hosted by financiers, gatherings where everyone arrived with a handler and left with secrets. Questionnaires one by one and specifically assured defense counsel that had concerns don't work. And somewhere within that world, Flower had her own profile, an actual private resume. Not for casting directors, for gatekeepers. A dossier used to introduce her to people with influence, not cameras. A guide that explained who she was, what she offered, and why she was being circulated. That his reign has the requisite hallmarks of modern monarchy, compassion, and magnanimity. A resume for a world Meghan has never publicly admitted being a part of. A world where she learned how wealth operates quietly. A world she later navigated far too smoothly for someone who was supposedly new to it. Music, long before Meghan became a duchess, long before she became a global headline or a royal problem, she crossed paths with the ecosystem surrounding Prince Andrew. Music, not romantically, not even socially in a direct sense, but she was present in the same curated environments he frequented. William would do it either because how can you forgive somebody that hasn't asked for it? So now we're going to the thing people don't understand about Andrew's circles is that nothing was casual. These weren't random house parties. These were events shaped by billionaire hosts, political sharks, handlers, publicists, music, and power players who knew exactly who to invite and why. To end up on those lists, you didn't need to be famous. You needed to be useful, intriguing, connected, or strategically placed. According to Maxwell, Meghan was exactly that. Music, that Meghan Markle's CV included adult entertainment and entertaining guests, for she wasn't the star of the room. She wasn't trying to be. She blended in, took music notes, observed the hierarchy, and watched how power moved from one handshake to the next. Music, that kind of proximity teaches you things Hollywood never could. Had to put money on it right now, Dan. I would say this verdict is probably going to get thrown out. People forget Meghan's greatest asset has always been her ability to adapt. In those early days, her lack of fame made her practically invisible, an advantage in a world where everyone else was being watched. Before that, so you know, Jeffrey Epstein was invited to the royal box in 2000. Maxwell suggested Meghan's presence wasn't random. Someone brought her in. Someone placed her there, and one of those people was Maxwell Music herself. When Meghan reappeared years later in the royal sphere, the shock wasn't universal. Some people, like Andrew's circle, didn't act surprised at all. They acted like they'd seen her before because they had. Every story like this, Music, has a figure who isn't loud but who knows everything. Someone who knows the rooms, the players, the connections, the unspoken alliances. In this one, that person is Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York. Incredible because Jeffrey Epstein was in 2000 invited. All most people believe Meghan met Fergie politely right before the wedding. That classic teach me how to curtsy moment. Cute story, very royal, very staged. But people inside elite circles insist the two had crossed paths much earlier back, when Meghan was showing up in the same exclusive environments Maxwell and Epstein's networks intersected with. Music Sarah was no stranger to these circles. She moved through them with ease. Part fundraiser, part social diplomat, part survivor of her own scandals. She knew the unwritten rules, the whispered warnings, and the power dynamics behind the scenes. And there's even said that the Queen unknowingly danced with this with Jeffrey Epstein. But going back to Meghan, there were even murmurs that Fergie and Maxwell had their own quiet rivalry, not personal, strategic. Two women maneuvering within the same wealthy orbit, each trying to maintain influence over different factions. So when Meghan resurfaced years later, now attached to Harry, Sarah didn't react with surprise. She reacted with caution because Fergie knew exactly what kind of rooms Meghan had been in before and exactly which names had been connected to her. I want to put it kindly, and nicely has been around the block so many times. She is already there. The royal family has many things: tradition, wealth, scandal. But what they fear most is pattern recognition. And Music Sarah, more than anyone, recognized the pattern because she'd seen it before. If Maxwell's world was the murky undercurrent no one dared to acknowledge, then Soho House was the polished, seductive surface everyone pretended was harmless. A members-only sanctuary where secrets wore designer sunglasses and introductions were worth more than diamonds. And standing behind many of those glittering rooms was Ron Burkle, the billionaire who seemed to know everyone who mattered and everyone who pretended not to. Forget that Virginia Roberts called her as a witness because she had it. Burkle wasn't just wealthy. He was connected in a way that made Hollywood insiders nervous. Politicians, royals, financiers, media titans, they all passed through his orbit. Music, and quietly woven into that same web, Ghislaine Maxwell, who moved through those networks long before prison turned her name into poison. Which brings us to April 2015. Way back for Meghan Markle, almost like Fergie to come back. But Gillian does Gillian Revella.